grab that mic. Good.
It was hard. Everything is hard. You know, we have to work for where we are now. You know, it wasn't easy. You know, we struggled. We did the Apollo.
How good is I Want You Back by the Jackson 5? I mean, really. Have the guitar hold tone center while the bass squeezes out every bit of mileage you can get out of a 7-note scale and a couple of passing tones. That bass line might be one of the most musically satisfying things to come out of the 60s. Fun fact, that's not James Jamerson playing bass on that one. It's Wilton Felder from the Crusaders. And how good is Off the Wall? Don't stop till you get enough. She's out of my life. Rock with you. Gorgeous music. So why did it never occur to me to find out what was happening between the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson's solo career? Yeah, why come that? Well, we're fixing that today. Here are the 5 things for the Jacksons. The Jackson 5 recorded their first album for Motown in 1969. Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5. And over the next 6 years, they would record a total of 10 albums, resulting in over 40 million records sold and 17 top 40 singles. In the list of top performing Motown artists of all time, the Jacksons rank 4th. Supremes, Stevie, Marvin Gaye, Jackson 5, Temptations. Over time, though, they started feeling more and more that they could do even better if they were allowed to write their own songs. So after their 10th album, Moving Violation, and their Motown contract was up for renewal, they made the decision to leave Motown and strike out on their own. All of them except Jermaine, that is. Yeah, it's true. At the time, Jermaine thought that the deal offered to them by Epic wasn't good enough, that Motown was a better platform for black artists, and that their career could best be served by staying on the track they'd already invested so much time in. Well, that, and he was married to Berry Gordy's daughter, probably make for awkward Thanksgivings if he moved. Well, yeah, that too. And over the next 6 years, Jermaine would release 7 solo albums on Motown, all doing well enough, nothing anywhere near what the Jackson 5 were doing previously. Since Jermaine made the decision to stay at Motown, Jackie, Marlon, Tito, and Michael decided to add youngest brother Randy Jackson.
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
No, not that Randy Jackson. And even though there were indeed still 5 of them, they could no longer use the name The Jackson 5. Motown owned that, so they adopted the name The Jacksons instead. The Jacksons were ready to be taken more seriously as artists and as musicians, and Epic wanted to help facilitate this. So to help kind of step them up from their squeaky clean boy band image, Epic teamed them up with Philadelphia soul producers Gamble and Huff to write and produce their first post-Motown release. Gamble and Huff pretty much invented the Philadelphia soul sound. The OJs, Billy Paul,
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones,
Lou Rawls,
Lady Love,
Teddy Pendegrass,
I don't love you anymore.
Patti LaBelle, even the theme song to Soul Train. All Gamble and Huff productions. And since Epic Records had just entered into a distribution partnership with Philadelphia International Records, it made the collaboration pretty much a no-brainer. The plan all along was that the first post-Motown album would be an imagery set, a way to cast the Jacksons in a new light as artists. And for that reason, only the 76 album The Jacksons and the 77 album Goin' Places were heavily influenced by the production and writing of Gamble and Huff. Heavily, but not exclusively. Even on their first Epic release, there were original pieces by Michael and Tito. And it started to turn things around for them. Where at Motown, the Jackson 5 had been on a steady decline for a number of years, the singles Enjoy Yourself and Show You the Way to Go both made the top 10, with Show You the Way to Go getting all the way to number 1 on the UK charts. In addition, the Jacksons got their very own music variety show on CBS. But hey, it was the 70s. The major networks were basically giving away variety music shows in boxes of Cracker Jacks back then. It was their third album for Epic, called Destiny, where things really started to change for the Jacksons. Destiny had 2 enormous singles, Blame It on the Boogie, and Shake Your Body, parentheses, down to the ground, close parentheses. It sold 2 million copies in the US on its initial run. They had a 108-show world tour grossing $7.5 million, and all on the strength of music entirely written and produced by the Jacksons themselves. And adding to their continued rise, Michael Jackson's first solo album, Off the Wall, was released in 1979, overlapping the ongoing success of Destiny and its supporting world tour. All in all, a huge vindication for what they'd been saying for years while at Motown. And that's the 5 things for the Jacksons. I'm off to give it a spin. Back soon with my first impressions.
Yeah, we were in England for about 3 days.
Can I tell the reason why you had to leave?
Sure, go ahead.
This young man's wife, Hazel Gordy Jackson, by the time this show airs, may be a mama for the first time. What'd she do, give you a false alarm?
No, she thought she was expecting a baby then.
Right then?
Yeah, right then, so we came home.
You know, spinning the Jacksons for the first time was in some ways similar to listening to the Genesis album Wind and Wuthering for the first time. With Genesis, I knew their early Peter Gabriel-fronted music, and I knew their chart-topping 80s trio music, but it wasn't until Wind and Wuthering that I was able to bridge those two sounds, able to hear both in a single recording. In the opening bars of Enjoy Yourself, I can definitely hear the R&B and funk sensibilities of the Jackson 5, only this time with MFSB as the backing band. MFSB, if you don't know, is Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, a collective of about 30 musicians that Gamble and Huff used for their productions. But singing lead is grown-up Michael Jackson, complete with his breathy, percussive little vocal interjections. Groovy little number. Great way to start the album. And I really like Think Happy. The groove is absolutely propulsive. The changes are intelligent. The modulation in the chorus has the same kind of infectiousness you hear in Happy by Pharrell Williams. Plus, there's a slide guitar that totally works in this context, which is definitely not what I expected. Good Times is a delicious little R&B slow jam. And you should never underestimate the power of a well-made R&B slow jam. I once did sound for a concert by Lattimore, one slow jam after another, and one of the biggest responses I ever heard from a small theater. You want to talk about a crowd of women totally into the music? By the end of that show, they were ready to eat him. Add a few choice expletives and maybe something unhinged from Eddie Hazel, and keep on dancing and make a passable funkadelic tune. Even with the nice modulation at the end of each phrase. That is all the way up until about halfway, when they give up the mid-tempo heavy pocket funk in exchange for full-fat disco. They were working the Moog ladder filters hard on this one. To end side 1 is the very first Michael Jackson composition to be released on any album, Blues Away.
Can't take my blues away.
It's a mid-tempo ballad heavy on the major sevenths and the strings. Got a nice hook though, and the chorus is remarkably similar to The Girl Is Mine.
The doggone girl is mine.
And side 2 starts with the song that I rolled, the second single released from the album, Show You the Way to Go. The primary tension is created by one of my favorite harmonic devices, major keys a minor third apart.
Let me show you the way to go.
It's the kind of sophisticated sounding tension you can hear in everything from Help Me by Joni Mitchell to High Falls by the Allman Brothers. It's so much fun to play over these kinds of changes. Up-tempo Curtis Mayfield style funk for the next tune, Living Together. Written by Dexter Wansel. If you don't know his album Life on Mars, you really need to check it out. Great changes on this one. Nice use of the minor 2-5-1 to the relative minor, followed by the major 2-5-1 to the subdominant. Another of my all-time favorite harmonic devices. So kind of like this. There's a lot of songs out there that, for example, in the key of C, if you go to A minor and then F, what you're doing is you're putting the 2-5-1s in between. So something like... Next is a very Isaac Hayes orchestral kind of a piece, Strength of One Man.
If we wanna get ahead,
Not the strongest song on the album, but, still solid. Another mid-tempo with strings, smooth kind of affair with interesting changes for Dreamer.
I guess I'll always be a dreamer.
The modulation is unintuitive on this one. Not changes I ever would have considered in a million years. Certainly it engages the analytic side. And the last song is Style of Life, co-written by Michael and Tito. Nice feel, nice pocket, nice changes. It does get a bit repetitive by the end, though.
Got to change your style of life.
Overall, I think from this first listen, it's safe to say I'm looking forward to listening more this week. Even without the Jacksons, the tunes are strong on their own. But add to that the spark of Michael Jackson's eminent superstardom, makes it all pretty engaging so far. Anyway, those are my first impressions. Back soon with final thoughts.
Hello out there, my name is Joe Jackson. All these up here is the Jackson family. We just come with a new company, a new family of people, good working people, call themselves the Epic People, the Epic Family. We're glad to be with them.
I gotta be honest with you, it took me forever to get my thoughts together and try and summarize my feelings about the Jacksons. I couldn't find a good angle to express what I was feeling. Ever have that happen to you, where you couldn't really pin down why something that should be easy is suddenly elusive? Felt a bit like pushing a rope uphill. And I think I finally figured out why. Look, Michael Jackson's Thriller is the best-selling album of all time. Nothing I say is going to change that. And although I hate engaging in speculation about the private lives of celebrities, all y'all watching this, I suspect, have feelings one way or the other about what kind of person Michael Jackson was. And I won't be changing that either. Yes, so for what it's worth, I have feelings about the music I'm hearing on the Jacksons. As mid-70s Philadelphia soul, it sounds pretty great. For every overused and hackneyed choice made on the album, like the strings or the bass lines, there's an inventive and interesting choice, like the slide guitar and the Moog synths. For me personally, these tunes could have used an edge, taken a few chances, maybe even let some of the Jacksons themselves stretch a bit instrumentally. Everything feels very nailed down and deterministic. I really tend to prize spontaneity and risk-taking in music. On the other hand, the instrumental aspect of the songwriting is really nice. The grooves have very deep pocket, the chord changes are inventive. Regardless of your instrument, if you're more a parts player than an improviser, then these tunes are going to be super satisfying. And finally, while the sounds on the Jackson might be a step away from Motown, the lyrics and the harmonies only differ from classic Jackson 5 in very superficial ways. Mainly Michael. But does any of that matter? It's the goddamn Jacksons! I still remember walking into the lobby of the Paramount Theater out on Long Island as we were loading in for Butch Trucks and the Freight Train Band and seeing our poster next to a poster of the Jacksons and getting a real sense of accomplishment. I'll be playing on the same stage as the Jacksons? How cool is that? And not to brag, but later that tour I played the same stage as the Dixie Dregs. That one got me as well. And if you like the Jackson 5 and you like Off the Wall, you're gonna like the Jacksons. It's transitional, but it's also well crafted and a good listen overall. This is an easy recommendation. But I doubt you needed me to tell you that. So for what it's worth, here's my 5-word overview of the Jacksons. Nicely crafted, but safe tunes. Now let's see what I'll be listening to next week. Time to roll for year 2019. Can you believe 2019 was 6 years ago at this point? Christ, I'm old. Anyway, for month and week, the first week of July 2019. What were you doing this summer before the pandemic? Anyway, chart position 1 to 100. Number 2. And the number 2 song on the Billboard Hot 100, first week of July 2019, Señorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello. Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello. Try hard not to judge me here, but these are not names I know. Señorita appears on the Shawn Mendes album called Shawn Mendes, so that's what I'll be listening to next. Thanks for hanging out with me, everyone. I will see you next week.